Alright, what's up guys? It's another day in my garage and I'm out here working on the 190E again, and today's project is fitting this hydraulic handbrake on my car. This hydraulic handbrake is made by Twisted Images, shout out to them. It's really quality stuff with really nice welds, and yeah, let's go ahead and start it. Here, as you can see, I've taken apart my little center console right over here. You need to remove this in order to gain access to the bare metal of the vehicle so that we can begin to make some brackets that hold up the hydraulic handbrake. So that's step one, take everything apart. If you have watched my previous videos, then you know that this trans tunnel that I have cut out, I've actually made it removable. So it's got some bolts and nuts, and whenever I want, I can remove the whole trans tunnel. This is what I'm talking about. It's cut all the way across, and it's got these bolts that hold it on. And if I want, I just remove those bolts and this whole unit comes off. That's great and all, but when mounting a hydraulic handbrake, I'm faced with an issue. Whenever I'm going to be tugging on it, I don't want to be warping any of the sheet metal around. So I'm going to have to create a custom bracket that mounts not only to the trans tunnel, but also to the original chassis, so it will eliminate that flex. I've chosen this spot right here. I've removed this SRS unit because I have no longer any need for it. And there's this little bracket here that has mounting bolt holes right there and another one right there. Best way to do this to not waste your time and to eliminate all kinds of mistakes you can make, you just take a piece of cardboard and mock it up using cardboard. Just get under these wires, but this is going to be the general idea. It's going to have those two mount bolts over there, one right there and one over on the other side. Then it's going to have this fold, and it's going to be sitting like this. Now that I have my cardboard mocked up, this is how the hydraulic handbrake is going to sit. It's going to sit right over here. This is a reverse hydraulic handbrake, which means that when I pull the handle down, it goes this way. It doesn't go the opposite way. So the master cylinder is actually going to be facing the front of the vehicle. Most hydraulic handbrakes are like this, where it's facing the other way. I just thought that this chassis will take a better hydraulic handbrake if I put it this way. It's really up to your discretion, but I just thought this is a better way to install it. After you've mocked everything up, if you look carefully, I've actually marked out on the cardboard itself 3 pink dots. And if you take the cardboard out, you'll notice that I've drilled those holes out. And the intention is to put a nut into those holes that provide me a thread to mount to, like this. So this is one of those holes that I drilled, but I actually put a nut inside it. I'm going to weld that nut into place so that I'll have something to mount the plate to. So after you made your template, you got to go and grab just a regular piece of steel. I got this off of Home Depot. It was like $8. And then you put your cardboard on top, and if you see, it somewhat matches up. I got the 3 mounting holes and then these 2 holes, and then I'm gonna bend this into shape and pretty much cut this out so that I can install it. Again guys, this is my way of doing it. You don't have to do it like this. I'm just documenting what I am doing on my own vehicle so that I'll remember the process later. My goal is to have it mounted in such a way that it's clean. Don't want to mount anything that's going to look real ugly. So this is that little trim piece, and it's going to go right around here. You see, it's going to fit into this groove. There might be some cutting involved, but again, I want to keep this as clean as possible. The next step is going to be welding these in. That's the priority right now. After I do that, then it's time to create that piece of metal, transfer it from cardboard onto steel. The quick word of advice guys, whenever you're welding on your car, make sure to always disconnect the battery. Take off the negative, take off the positive, do whatever you got to do, the car is grounded to the battery and it's grounded to your ECU. So if you're welding it, you can do a short to your ECU and the thing will never work again. So if you're gonna weld, just turn off the battery, call it good. As you can see, I've gone ahead and made up this plate from that cardboard piece, and I've gone ahead and bolted it down. Now, I didn't have enough of this metal wasn't wide enough, and I want my hydraulic handbrake to go right here. As you can see, it kind of hangs off. So what I did is I cut another piece, and I'm gonna put it right there. Just extend it. You know what I mean? So extend that so that I can mount the hydro onto that piece right there. So that's the next step. All right, I've gone ahead and made that platform for the hydraulic handbrake to go on. Problem is when I put this on and I want the hydraulic handbrake to be fitted right here, this is way too low. I'm gonna have to build a platform to raise this up just a few centimeters or 1.5 inches or maybe even 2 inches, just so that I can get this hydraulic handbrake sitting in the right position so that I won't have to be cutting out a lot of this. In order to make that platform, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get another plate and I'm gonna make it boltable to this. And I'm gonna make a raised surface so that I can mount it over there. Alright, I've put this trim piece back, and now it comes time to finalize the location of where it's gonna go so that I can start the mounting process. Just word of advice, you're gonna have to be taking things on and off several times. So I already took this apart and I put it back together. The reason why I did that is because I was making an adapter plate. So I got these holes on the bottom and I took a plate, I drilled those holes and I welded some bolts onto the bottom so that this can go straight into this. You get the idea. So what's gonna happen is this is gonna go underneath and this is gonna go on top, and they're gonna sandwich this panel in between. Now I have a bit of a clearance issue with the master cylinder. This is basically the location I want it to go in, but as you can see in the back, the master cylinder is hitting right here. So I'm just gonna cut this trim piece out and then we'll come back and get more measurements. Yeah, I have cut it out. I've made a little bevel out of it and this is where it's gonna go. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark this in place with a marker so that when I take it off, I can actually get an impression of those 3 holes so I can mount that plate underneath. Now that I've removed all this from the car, you can see the impression that it's left right there. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this back apart so I can put this on there and mark those 3 holes so that I could drill this and I could sandwich this from underneath. I already went ahead and drilled the holes and put the plate underneath. So this was the goal, to get those 3 studs sticking out. So what I can do is I can just go ahead and drop this in and it'll mount flush. So what's gonna happen next is I'm gonna have to put this back in the car and get a bracket made from the other plate up to this plate so that it'll stay stationary. All right, so this is in. I just bolted this one because it's at an angle. Let me get the flash on. I made a little plate. I welded it to this bracket right here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna tack it down here. And when I remove this, I'll have the tacked up bracket and I can make the rest of the corners. I went ahead and got it all tacked up. And now you can see how high off it is. And I'm gonna have to build brackets for the rest of the sides. And now it's gonna be much easier for me to do that without this trim piece being on there. So yeah, here we go. I'm gonna take this whole thing off and weld it up. So here's what it looks like after it's all been boxed in. And I just gotta wait until this cools down a bit so I can test fit it, and then I'm gonna throw some coats of paint so that it doesn't rust. I threw a few layers of paint on this bracket just so that it won't rust, and now it's gonna be good to go to be put back in the car for another test fit. Alright, so here you can see what I was going for. Underneath all here, it's all plated with metal. And up here, all I have is these 3 studs showing through where my hydraulic handbrake mount is gonna go. And boom, I just need to tighten those down and those are gonna be solid. So after I'm done mounting, I'm probably gonna move this up here so that I'll have more space for my fittings. But yeah, it's looking real good. Mounted it. It's all hard mounted, and the cool part is that you can't really see any of the brackets that I used, which is the way I kind of liked it to be. And yeah, I really like the location of it, and it doesn't really interfere with my shifter. I really like it. So next step is going to be to do all the plumbing, but for now I'm pretty happy with the results. Here's the final product. It's all mounted up and bled and everything. This is where it's mounted, and those are the lines. This line right here that's facing closest to me runs to the back of the car where the calipers are, and that line right there, that goes up to the master cylinder. The 190E had a line going to the master cylinder. What I did is I removed it from there and I routed it here, and I made another line going from this to the master cylinder in the engine bay. Here's the engine bay. In essence, you're supposed to cut this line and put it to the master cylinder. This is the one that I made. This goes from here all the way to the master cylinder, and from the master cylinder it gets split into the back where it tees into the back wheels. You just have to make sure that you bleed the system very well and over again. The back calipers from factory, they tee off into one line. So from factory you have one line from this master cylinder right here, this line right here, going all the way to the back of the car, and it splits right at the end above the subframe into a T where it goes to each caliper. So what I've done is that whole line that goes all the way up to the front, I just cut it right there, and I took that line and I put it in my hydraulic handbrake, and then I made a new line from the hydraulic handbrake coming all the way up to here. It's as simple as that. You don't need no T-fittings because it already comes like that from factory. Another thing, make sure you get the right type of master cylinder. This one right here is a 0.625. The reason why this took so long is because originally I had it installed with this master cylinder. And even though I bled the system and I would tug on it when I was driving, it wouldn't create enough force to lock up the rear calipers. I went ahead and switched out the master cylinder to a smaller bore, and now it locks up like butter, no problem. I'm not gonna go into detail on how to actually do all the flaring of the brake lines because there are a bunch of videos out there that teach you how to do that. And just make sure you have the right tools for the job. Like this guy right here, this is a brake flaring toolkit. And this is some hose that you can get at a local parts store for car parts. And this is a pipe bender. And there are several types of cutters as well that you can use. This one, and if you need a tighter access, you can use this one right over here. So there you have it, folks. That's how you install a hydraulic handbrake into a 190E W201. I did have to cut the trim over here somewhat, but if you're already going this deep into the project, you're ready to cut some things up. So yeah, there we go. Next step is going to be taking this car to a drift event and testing it out. So we'll see how that goes. Until next time, see you later, guys. Bye.